Hello, and thank you for joining me for Foundations of Yoga Part 2. You can take a look at my first video for what we covered there, some benefits of yoga, and what yoga is. Today, we're going to look at yoga and other worldviews, and some of the philosophy of yoga, which is broken down into the 8 limbs. So to begin, when we think of yoga, a lot of times we associate it with its origins in India and in that part of the world, and possibly with its association or similarity to Hinduism or even Buddhism. But when you look at how yoga encompasses connections with yourself, others, the divine or spiritual, something beyond yourself, and really everything in the world around us, and as we start looking at some of the philosophical concepts, I hope you begin to see that yoga is something that is for everyone because the principles of it are innate human characteristics, qualities, desires, ethics, things that we see actually in probably every religion and culture around the world. And so I believe that yoga is compatible with whatever mindset you have regarding spirituality or religion, or even if you don't hold to a religion, but you focus on science. We know that in this day and age, there have been many studies done regarding yoga, meditation, breath work, mindfulness, and these types of alternative practices from ancient cultures. And we see that the science is showing that these are beneficial for everyone, that there are actually scientific, quantitative, qualitative, measurable aspects of these practices that can be looked at, and even how they connect with different brain regions and benefits for the heart and life, which is something that is innate to all of us, that I would say predates any religion, but that is a part of who we are from our inception. And so I hope that as we look at these different principles, whatever your faith background or lack of faith background, you'll be able to see how yoga is something that you can apply to your life. So taking a deeper look into yoga philosophy and the 8 limbs, these were put into a accumulation of texts, and it's called the Sutras, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And this was written somewhere between 200 BC and 200 AD. And it's looking at how we should live life. Again, this is something that is accessible to everyone. And the words are written in Sanskrit. That was the language and the text that they used at that time. And so the first one is called Yama. And Yama is the first limb. These are social ethics, outward ways of living, proper behavior toward others. So this is our external interaction with other people, and we'll look at those in more detail in a future video. The second limb is called Niyama, and these are ways to authentically be ourselves, personal practices or inward observances. And the next one moves into the most recognizable aspect of yoga, asanas, and these are the postures, the way that we physically move our body to be present so that it can guide our mind. The fourth limb is pranayama, and this is breath work. This is the way that we control, direct, and allow expansion of our breath, which will bring many benefits, and we will look at that in a future video as well. Pratyahara is the withdrawal of our senses, and this is so that we can remove distractions. We can turn inward, and this allows us to not only draw away from the senses, but also to gauge what is coming through them. Whatever we allow into our mind leaves an impression. What we hear, what we see, what we allow our mind to focus on. And so I invite you to take a moment in our reflection time and just see if you can recognize who is in control, your senses or you. Are your senses taking you for a ride someplace and you go wherever they direct you? Or are you in control and able to direct your desires and your attention. The next limb is dhyana, and this is focused concentration on an object. And we see that this is similar to meditation, but it's a meditation of concentration on one type of image, visually looking at it or looking in our mind's eye. The next one is dhyana, where we enter into meditative flow. And we'll talk about what flow state is a little bit later. But this is where we can meditate without having the object of focus, without needing that one thing to look at. And it moves us into the last limb, samadhi, which is considered bliss or union. It could be oneness with the divine, if you are engaging in a spiritual connection, or it's just being fully absorbed in the moment where you're just simply existing in this state of surrender and union. And so these are beautiful aspects which we will gaze at a little bit more fully in the future. But for now, I invite you in our reflection time to take a moment and to turn inward and see what you are allowing to make an impression on your mind. What influences are you allowing into your mind, into that space of awareness through your senses and through your interactions? And as you think on that, see if you can find ways that these impressions, these influences could be more positive. Are any of these associations negative and they need to be removed, or can they be redirected in a more positive manner? And lastly, how can you practice withdrawing from your senses, not letting them be in control, finding a place of stillness and where you are directing your attention and not being drawn away by your senses? I hope these are helpful prompts and give you a taste of what is to come in future lessons. I invite you to return to learn more about these 8 limbs. Thank you for joining me for today's class.